In Venezuela, the candidate registration process for the July 28th presidential election continues on its fourth day. In Russia, authorities confirmed the completion of rescue operations on the Crocus Whole City concert venue. And in Senegal, citizens go to the polls to choose their next president. Authorities expect a high turnout. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuela's National Electoral Council held the fourth day of candidate registration for upcoming 2024 presidential election. After receiving the nominations, the electoral body starts to review the documents of each candidacy in order to verify that they are in accordance with the law and comply with current electoral regulations. This time, candidates Javier Bertucci, Benjamin Rauso, Claudio Fermin, and Luis Racio presented themselves before the highest electoral authority to officialize their registration as candidates for the July 28th presidential elections. Elvis Amoroso, president of the National Electoral Council, congratulated the candidates for choosing the legal path. We celebrate and congratulate each of the candidates who have come here to the National Electoral Council in compliance with the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, the laws of our country, and of course also everything established in National Electoral Council regulations. In his registration speech, current presidential candidate Javier Bertucci for the Hope for Change party pointed out that his government program will mainly seek national reunification and peace. Today I submit my government program of management, a program made responsibly with the best, a program that seeks reunification, that seeks tolerance, that seeks governability and national peace. We are convinced that any change that this party and this candidate wishes for this country must be in peace. In the way we are participating today, it must be electoral way. Venezuela's Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez announced the creation of a high state commission against fascism and neo-fascism. In her X account, Rodriguez said President Nicolás Maduro has decided to create a high state commission against fascism and neo-fascism to submit to the National Assembly a bill against fascism and all neo-fascist expressions in the exercise of politics and national life as soon as possible. This is in attention to the facts of violence that the country experienced in 2014, 2015, 2017, as well as the serious consequences for the country's economy, sovereignty and territorial integrity compromised by extremist factors that took over the Venezuelan parliament in 2015 to strip Venezuela of its resources and create internal destabilization. And finally, in consideration of the international situation, whose peace and stability are threatened by neo-fascist expressions festering in centers of power at the service of the global north. In Venezuela, neither fascism or neo-fascist neo-Nazism will succeed. On Sunday, Argentine citizens hold a new march for memory, truth and justice as they commemorate 48 years of the beginning of the last civil military dictatorship. Human rights organizations, political parties and social organizations called to march throughout the country under the slogan, "Never Again, State Terrorism." The epicenter of the mobilizations will be the Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires. The day is expected to be one of the most massive in the 40 years since the return of democracy, in addition to the historic condemnation of the systematic plan of kidnappings, torture and disappearances, and the demand for trial and punishment of those responsible. This year, the rejection of the negationist declarations and the neoliberal economic policies of Javier Milei government. The government of Argentina spent 17% less of its budget on human rights policies. The cuts endanger the preservation of sites of memory and the development of trials for crimes against humanity. According to an analysis published by the Center for Political Economy in the last quarter of 2024, funding fell significantly compared to the same period in 2023. In this sense, the data show that programs such as the custody of the National Archive of Memory did not receive funding so far this year, with a decrease of up to 76%. In this context, human rights workers in Argentina fear massive layoffs due to budgetary neglect by the authorities. Saturday marked the 60th anniversary of Brazil's military coup, which installed a totalitarian government which lasted until 1985. Across the country, people held rallies. Our correspondent Brian Meir has the story.
60 years ago, March 23rd entered Brazil's history books as a day of infamy, when tanks rolled into Rio de Janeiro and the armed forces enacted a coup d'etat, ushering in 21 years of totalitarian dictatorship. Across the country today, activists of all ages gathered to mark this solemn occasion, remembering all of the people who were killed and tortured, and to say never again.
The student union was one of the main movements that confronted the dictatorship. The students came to the streets, and the union has been fighting for the truth and justice to this day, including against the coup riots that took place on January 8, 2023. We have a historic responsibility to Brazil to expose the truth and to fight in defense of the Brazilian people. The students have always been on the front lines in defense of Brazil.
Brazil's military dictatorship operated torture chambers and death squads. In 2014, President Dilma Rousseff, herself a victim of brutal torture, created a truth commission which registered 8,743 assassinations of political prisoners and indigenous people. When it ended in 1985, unlike in neighboring Argentina, the military officers involved were granted amnesty, with some rising to powerful positions in the Bolsonaro government.
I was a student during the coup. I was an activist, and I went on the ground. I was arrested and spent 9 years in prison. I say that in a certain way, today is a sad day, because we still haven't escaped the dictatorship. The dictatorship continues through its most important law, the amnesty law. It's the law that Bolsonaro is trying to use to stay out of jail.
The protesters demand that Brazil re-establish the Truth Commission, which was shut down by Jair Bolsonaro, who was an army captain during the dictatorship. Brian Meir, TeleSUR, Recife.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Russian authorities confirmed the completion of rescue operations at the Crocus Whole City concert venue following the terrorist attack that killed 182 people and wounded 154 others. Moscow Regional Governor Andrei Vorovyov said that the search for the dead will continue until the debris removal work is completed. He detailed that 50 of the more than 100 dead have been identified, while 107 of the injured remain in hospitals. On the other hand, the Ministry of Emergencies revealed that the fire after the terrorist attack affected almost 13,000 square meters of the infrastructure. In Russia, a shopping mall in St. Petersburg was evacuated following threat of terrorist attack. This Sunday, the London Mall shopping center was evacuated after a person reported that there was an individual carrying a bomb with him. Authorities took immediate action by evacuating people at the site while detaining the suspect so that he could reveal the explosive's location. In addition, police forces, firefighters, and ambulances arrived at the scene to assist the emergency. Also in Russia, at least one person was killed and 4 others were injured after a Ukrainian missile attack in the port city of Sevastopol. According to local authorities, the Russian anti-aircraft defense managed to intercept and shoot down several air targets. However, the headquarters of a naval infantry brigade was hit, which led to the closure of the Kerch Bridge, a crucial link connecting the peninsula with the Russian territory. According to local media, damage to several vessels in Sevastopol has also been reported. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that his country will continue to act as it has been doing so far to ensure that Ukraine does not threaten the security of its territory and citizens. Pope Francis expressed his condolences to the Russian people this Sunday on the occasion of the terrorist attack on the Crocus City Hall concert hall outside Moscow. The Supreme Pontiff also expressed the hope that the hearts of those who plan, organize, and carry out these inhumane acts that offend God will be converted. On March 22nd, a group of armed men dressed in camouflage unleashed a shooting at the Crocus City Hall concert hall located in Krasnogorsk, in the northwestern outskirts of Moscow, just minutes before the start of a rock band concert. The shooting was followed by a fire which, according to the emergency ministry, affected an area of almost 13,000 square meters. I assure you of my prayers for the victims of the cowardly terrorist attacks committed the other afternoon in Moscow. May the Lord welcome them in His peace and comfort their families and convert the hearts of those who protect, organize, and execute these inhumane acts that offend God, who commanded, "Thou shalt not kill." In Senegal, citizens go to the polls to choose their next president. Authorities expect a high turnout. Over 7 million voters registered to participate in the election day. The candidate for the ruling party, Amadou Ba, and opposition Bassirou Diomaye Faye are the favorites to contest the presidency among 19 registered candidates. The elections are held after the serious crisis resulting from the postponement of the vote decreed by outgoing President Macky Sall, which led to strong protests that were repressed and claimed the lives of at least 4 people. Citizens who go to the polls stress the importance of not failing to vote on this day in which they choose the future of the country.
Le vote s'est très bien passé.
The vote went very well, and the echoes reaching me from within the country suggest that. So far, the conditions are good. I think there is no doubt we will know who will be the next president of the Republic by the end of today.
On devrait connaître le prochain président de la République.
After casting his vote, the main opposition candidate, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, said he is convinced of his victory in the first round. It is said that the presidential election is a meeting between a man and his people. We have succeeded in making this election a time for the clear presentation of a vision of society, to a society and a people called upon to choose between continuity and change. In a few hours' time, we will have the verdict of that choice. At a massive rally, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan urged people to vote for his former Environment Minister Murat Kurum, who is running for mayor of Istanbul in the March 31st election. Inshallah, on March 31st, we will achieve this goal by leading Istanbul to its dream. We will start a new era in Istanbul with Murat Kurum, a solid candidate and a solid man. Of course, we will work hard for this, one last week for this. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin American, Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. New Israeli army attacks in the Gaza Strip mark on Sunday. In the Rafah region, there are very difficult times for the people who have had to move and are victims of the Zionist repression. Our correspondent Nur Harasin offers details.
One of the most intense nights here on the people of Rafah as the Israeli forces pounded the area between Rafah and Khan Yunis with hundreds of airstrikes during the night. I mean, a full hour from 3 to 4 a.m. in the morning, the Israeli forces carried hundreds of attacks on the Al Matahin street and the Al Fukhari area, which is located between Rafah and Khan Yunis. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, tens of people were killed in these attacks, including one paramedic who is Amir Abu Aisha. However, the health ministry did not release a specific number because the paramedics are until now trying to reach those areas that were targeted during the night. Also, in a separate attack, 19 people were killed at the Al Kuwaiti Square when they were waiting for humanitarian aid. This is really attacks on crowds waiting for humanitarian aid in northern Gaza became as a daily basis. However, Palestinians here on the ground have no other choice. They have no options rather than risk their lives and go to wait for the humanitarian aid. Here I am standing in Rafah. Behind me is actually one of the tents where one family of the displaced people from northern Gaza are living in a very, very bad condition. They are using cloth and nylon and plastic to cover and to build these tents that actually does not help them through the winter. Here I have actually a group of children who are waiting next to me. They are very excited. Actually, some of them want to talk, so let's talk to one of them.
Hello, tell me your name.
Muhammad.
محمد انت حكيت لي انه انت نازح من شمال غزه
Are
صح
you
من منطقه
displaced,
الصبرا
right?
صح
I am
انا كمان
also
نازحه من
displaced
شمال
from
غزه
North
انا نازحه
Gaza
من
from
الشجاعيه بس بدي
Al-Sujaiya.
اياك
Tell
تحكي
me
لي
about your
كيف
conditions. What did you eat?
ظروفكم
What did you
المعيشيه
drink?
هنا كيف شو بتاكلوا شو بتشربوا مشتاق لإشي في غزه احكي يلا احكي لي
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
تعال بس لف حالك هيك لا هيك ايوه شطور يلا احكي لي كيف ظروفكم
We live in a tent where we eat, drink, and sleep.
اشتقت لغزة طيب اشتقت لشمال
Did you
غزة
miss Gaza? What do you miss the most? For school? What is your wish?
طب ايش بتتمنى لو عندك أمنية ايش بتتمناها
I wish to return home.
God grant you to come back. I wish to return too, dear son. Thank you.
Of course, I could not turn his request to talk to the camera, so I had to talk with the amazing Muhammad, who is like me, a displaced Palestinian from northern Gaza. Actually, he's displaced from an area called the As-Sabra, and I am displaced from an area called the Ashujaiya, and these are very close areas to each other. And this bring pain to our hearts as for more than 5.5 months we have been suffering this displacement in the city of Rafah. Noor Harazin, TeleSUR, Gaza.
In Palestine, social movements denounced what a crisis affecting more than 2 million inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. They point out that refugee centers and camps for displaced people rely on tanker trucks to obtain the vital liquid, the delivery capacity of which is limited due to the lack of fuel as a result of the blockade implemented by the Tel Aviv regime as part of the genocidal policy against the population of the Gaza Strip. In a new war crime, the Israeli occupation army besieges Nasser and Al-Ahmal hospitals located in Han Yunis, south of Gaza. The Palestinian Red Crescent announced on Sunday that Israeli forces besieged the hospitals with heavy shelling and shooting. It also pointed out that dozens of armored vehicles surrounded both hospitals and carried out excavation works in the surroundings. The organization added that all of its teams are currently in extreme danger. On February 15th, the Israeli occupation forces attacked the Nasser hospital in a 10-day offensive during which they killed dozens of displaced persons, medical personnel, and patients inside the compound. We say in Palestine, 8 people were killed after new attacks by Israeli occupation forces in central Gaza. During a bombardment carried out late on Saturday night, several missiles hit a residential house in Deir al-Balah, where at least 2 women were killed and dozens of people were wounded. In the hours before the attack, health authorities in Gaza reported that the Israelis perpetrated at least 7 massacres against several families in the region in the past 24 hours, resulting in the death of at least 72 Palestinians. With the latest reports, the number of people killed by Israel since last October 7th reaches 32,142, while the number of wounded stands at 74,412, the majority of the victims being women and children. On the other hand, in the early hours of Sunday morning, rescue teams recovered the bodies of 6 Palestinian civilians killed east of the city of Rafah. Bodies belonging to members of the Farwana family were pulled out from the rubble of their house, which was bombed by Israeli occupation forces aircraft on Saturday night. Israel also carried out attacks in the central, southern and western areas of Khan Yunis Governorate, which include bombardment by aircraft with missiles, shootings from helicopters and raids with military ground vehicles. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.